Welcome to the show today, Green Spring. It is Monday, February 20th, and it is the 55-year anniversary of John Glenn's first orbit in outer space. And to talk about this occasion and sort of the peek at what was going on in the space race, we've got our resident leader of the cosmology group here, Richard Schmidt. He's back, sitting at the table. Richard, I know we've been stretching you the last couple times. I think we got you to talk about Star Trek a little bit the last time you were on, and now we're talking about something that you lived through, also, the space race. So of course today is, like I said, the 55th anniversary of John Glenn's first orbit in outer space. That was of course a part of the space race. There was a lot of moments that happened. Why don't we start at the beginning and kind of explain, if you remember, because you kind of lived through it, what were some of the incidents that you remember that kind of kicked off this competition with the Soviet Union?
Well, the whole thing was Sputnik.
Yeah.
What a surprise that was. When Sputnik went up there, we figured, hey, Russia, they're not anywhere near us, you know. And then they put something up there, it's spinning around the Earth, it's putting out these beeps, and people can hear them, you know, and watch the little dot go across the sky. That's something new. And we had nothing like it.
Yeah.
And so that put us way behind, okay? Everybody was in a funk.
Right.
And, but gradually, you know, we got some stuff up there, and it was no man up there, but at least we had something going around the Earth, and so we matched them, but a little bit later.
Right.
And
then there was a lot of national pride kind of tied up.
Oh, absolutely, because this was the Cold War. And everything was, we got to be better than them, and we got to make sure that they can't do anything to us. The nuclear threat was there.
Yeah.
You're worried about they're going to be sending something over to America. We had missiles that we could send over there and destroy them. Well, now they send something up into space. Man, they may drop something down from space. Bad news.
Yeah, so the space race was, explain kind of what that was for some residents here that were maybe a little too young to remember, surprisingly.
Okay.
Yeah.
The whole idea was to try and do something that was going to impress everybody in the world.
Right.
We're trying to get the world behind America. That's the whole idea. And so the first steps was get something up into space, and we did that. Well, then they shot a man up there and had a man orbiting. Well, they beat us on that one.
Yeah, his name was Yuri Gagarin, if I'm reading my page correctly. The first man in space was a Russian. Okay.
Yeah, they were ahead of us on that.
Yep.
Well, we kept on pushing, and we finally got our man to go up into space, but he didn't stay there. He didn't orbit around. He just went up. Shepard was the guy.
Yeah, Alan Shepard.
Alan Shepard. He went up, came back down again. It was a short ride, but at least it proved we could get somebody up out of the atmosphere.
So they just put him up there to say, hey, he's in space, and then brought him back down.
That's it.
And well, what did they classify as outer space at the time?
I guess beyond the atmosphere, when the atmosphere is so thin that they consider that space.
Look out the window and, hey, okay, I see the Earth. This is outer space.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, if you're in the atmosphere, well, now the friction is going to slow down anything you try and put in orbit. You get it out there so far that the atmosphere is not there. Now the orbit is not attenuated by the atmosphere, and you can have that thing spinning on quite a while. You could always add a little extra thrust to keep it in orbit, but you know, if you're far enough out, you don't have to put much thrust, just keep it going.
Right. Okay, well, that makes sense. About how long did the space race last? You just give me a guesstimate.
Gee whiz, when we got onto the moon, that sort of solidified our place.
Right.
We did it first.
Because all the Apollo missions were kind of tied up in the space race, too.
Yeah, everything on Apollo was for the reaching the moon. That was Kennedy's idea that by the end of the decade, let's make it out to the moon. Well, that was quite a stretch.
Yeah.
And they had a big bidding war between companies, and Grumman won it. I was on Long Island, and Grumman's on Long Island, so I was really close to where this was all going on. They won it, and they got the lander contract.
So that brings us kind of to the event of today, which was John Glenn's first orbit of the Earth. And you kind of touched on it already. That was a milestone for our country, saying we get the first person to orbit the
Yeah.
Earth.
I don't remember it being such a big deal, but it certainly was a big deal at the time. If you look
Yeah.
at the record in the newspapers and everything, he was treated as a hero,
Yeah.
a great hero, you know.
And how many times did he go around the Earth?
I think it was 3 times.
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I saw the movie Hidden Figures recently, that on the way back in, they were afraid the heat shield had failed. So they radioed up to him and told him to keep the retro rocket packs on, thinking that might hold on the heat shield. That ended up being a false alarm, and he splashed down and everything was okay. I was just reading a little bit before you came, and
I just remember it being perfectly okay. I don't remember any problem being announced to the nation that he was in trouble.
yeah, I don't think it was a big deal, but I was just reading it back there, and there was something about he decided not to go out the hatch when he landed because he was kind of getting overheated, so he went out into the ocean to kind of cool off. But yeah, mostly a victory for the United States.
Yeah,
right.
That was it.
So we have a little video. We're going to take a break here for a second. I have a video to mark the occasion. So in about 8 minutes, we'll come back and do a little wrap up, okay? So
Okay.
Janelle and I from Community Resources walked around Green Spring and collected some people's thoughts on this space anniversary. Let's take a look.
Hi, this is Janelle, and today we are celebrating the 55th anniversary of John Glenn's historic orbit around the Earth. On February 20th, 1962, John Glenn became the first person to orbit the Earth. He did it 3 times. So today we're asking staff and residents if they remember this day, and what are their recollections. Ask you if you remember the John Glenn orbit around the Earth in 1962.
One of the spectacular memories of my life, and yes, I read every news report I could get my hands on. And I still have magazines from that event.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
I'm Janelle, and I'm helping Channel 6 out today. We're doing a show about remembering John Glenn's historic flight on February 20th, 1962, when he orbited the Earth. Do you remember that day, watching it?
Yes, I do.
And what do you remember about it?
It was fantastic.
Do you remember when he came home?
No, I
And they
don't.
had a ticker tape parade,
Oh, yeah,
celebration,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
big hero.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Hi, Joe.
Hello,
I'm Janelle.
I'm Joe.
Nice to see you. I wanted to ask you, do you remember John Glenn's historic orbit around the Earth?
I do.
Were you watching it?
Yes, I was. As a matter of fact, and I hoped that he would make it all the way around. I mean, back then, you didn't know. When you went out there in open space, he was going around. We didn't know.
That's 40-some years ago.
55. That's why we're doing this segment.
I don't remember. Actually, I was taking some courses, and I was so happy we had the day off.
Oh, you got the day off because of the orbit?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
I
very
do
cool.
remember.
My daughter lived down here in Kingstown, and her next door neighbor was John Glenn's secretary.
Oh, really?
Right.
Huh.
And then when John Glenn left the Capitol, she went back to Ohio with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're talking about when he was a senator.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't really know much. I've been to some meetings with some of the astronauts, but not John.
I remember going up, and actually I was in school at the time, believe it or not. And I went to each classroom because I saw it on TV in the principal's office. And I went to run through the classrooms and saying, he's up, he went around the orbit and coming back.
Do you remember that there was a small glitch and people were worried about it being too hot and he escaped out of the side instead of the top or something like that?
The only thing I can remember, they were really worried about the capsule sinking.
Ah, okay.
And I say that's the one, there was quite a few of them back then.
Right.
That went up, but he was the first. And they were worried about where they're coming down.
We are celebrating the 55th anniversary of John Glenn's historic orbit around the Earth in 1962. It was on February 20th. And I'm wondering if you remember that day? You remember watching it on TV with your family or friends? You want to let Andrew know? Do you remember that?
Well, the answer is yes, I do remember it. And I also remember that my classmate, who was the first American into space.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You called him his backup. And John Glenn hated that.
Ah,
But other than that, I can't answer any more questions.
okay.
Oh, well, when I first moved to Arlington, I was teaching at Williamsburg Junior High School and in Arlington. And John's home was right across the entrance to the school. And occasionally we used to see John out there cutting his grass.
So the great national hero cut his
Right.
own grass.
Yeah, he did everything all the normal people do.
Well, that's nice. That's a really fun memory. Thank you very much
Right.
for sharing.
Sure enough.
I was teaching at the time, and the library was across the hall from my classroom. And probably the only TV in the building was in the library. And I can remember sneaking over there to see what was on TV about it, while it was being broadcast and so on. And the excitement of course, doing it, and the excitement of the safe landing. And now if you've seen the movie Hidden Figures, that I thought, I wish I'd known all that was going on behind the scenes.
That's really awesome.
And of course, then John Glenn later lived in Arlington, where I grew up, and
Yeah.
so I felt a connection.
Yeah, I remember it also. I, years later, worked for schools in Arlington, and I had a principal who had been principal at a junior high school in Arlington, Williamsburg Junior High, that John Glenn's kids were in the school when it took place. And he talked to us about the trouble he had keeping reported stuff away from the window. They sneak up and try and take pictures of kids in class, that sort of stuff.
Well, their dad was a national hero. I guess so.
And we're back. Richard, you were saying while you were watching that you remembered something about the touchdown in the water and the capsule sinking.
Yeah, the concern was that he opened that hatch.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe the water would get in there and sink the whole thing.
Right.
And so there was great concern about that. That I do remember.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I was touching on earlier when I talked about how he decided to go out the side. There was some reason he went out the side entrance instead of the top hatch. Yeah, I remember hearing about that from some of the residents we talked to about the concern about the hatch. So you said you don't remember specifically watching this on TV.
No, I don't recall looking at it on TV.
So where were you about February 20th, 1962? What were you up to then?
Let's see. I was working probably at Sperry,
Okay.
doing radar work. And so I was not involved with the space race.
No.
It was strictly defense that I was doing.
So where were you when you heard about the orbit the first time?
Got me?
Yeah. You don't remember when you first heard about it?
Not at all, no. Probably just read about it in the paper.
Gotcha. Paper. So what were some of the challenges that you can think of, just knowing something about outer space, that he faced up there while orbiting? What were some of the things that could have gone wrong? Anything off the top of your head?
Hey, anything can go wrong
Yeah.
when you're playing with that. I mean, you can see right on the launch pad, it can blow up, okay? As you're going up, there can be failures with the engines.
Yeah.
the vibrations are fantastic as you're going up, and so you can break the whole vehicle apart.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of things that can go wrong. Once you get into outer space, there's no pressure on the outside. You got all the pressure on the inside. You could lose your pressure. And so those spacesuits are designed to keep that pressure within him.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, he'd blow up.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. If you have a body exposed to the vacuum of space, your body just blows up.
Bursts.
The blood in your body can start boiling right away.
Wow, because it's also cold in outer space, correct? Freezing.
There's no, well, on one side you got the heat from the sun, on the other side is cold.
That's interesting. I never thought of that with the pressure in the spacesuits. It's good that we have you on here today. So, any final thoughts on John Glenn or the space race? How the space race ended?
Well, the end is with the Apollos.
Yeah,
you get the Apollo series going. You want to get somebody out there to the moon. We started out by just sending and orbiting the moon. We didn't just go land right away. And so now you establish that, oh yeah, we can get out there, we can orbit, we know pretty much what we're doing. Now is the time to get out there, and with a command module will still be orbiting. You release the landing module. The landing module is separate from the command module. And that landing module has to go down and through its own thrust land softly. And I watched that whole thing on TV. As that's coming down, they had, I'm trying to think how they got that picture, because I guess from inside, you could just see the ground coming up. And so that was coming from the landing module itself.
Yeah.
And as they get down, we didn't know what the surface was going to be. If it was all powder, it would just cloud up like a big fog. And if it was rocky, well, then it wouldn't do that. We didn't know which it was. And so as they went down, yes, there was some powder, and some did blow up, but not like we were
too much. And I think
worried about. Yeah.
They lowered a camera so you could see Neil Armstrong coming down the ladder, right, when the first man landed.
Yeah, you could see that too.
Yep.
I was camping at the time, and somebody got electricity up there at the camp.
Oh, nice.
And put a TV up, and we all gathered around the TV to watch it.
You remember where you were then?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That one I saw.
So the Man on the Moon, that was 1969. So this was, that was probably about 7 years later. The space race ended with a bang after John Glenn's
Well, it
first
continued
orbit.
on. They had other landings on the moon. They had explorations on the moon, but Russia pretty much gave up.
Yeah.
They made some attempts out there, but nothing to land.
And there eventually became a cooperation with Russia in 1972,
yes, we did.
Correct?
Yeah.
So that was kind of peace.
Helped.
Yeah.
A little bit.
What was the project that they teamed up on?
I can't tell you.
The
on
Apollo
that one, no.
Soyuz test project, I think it was.
Yeah.
I guess they called that the period of detente.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to get along a little bit.
Now, did that help eventually when we teamed up with Russia, or was it better for the U.S. economy when we were competing with them?
Well, after the Apollo series, the interest in going out into space dropped off. They didn't follow up on that very much. You went into more exploration without men.
Yeah.
The idea of putting men up there was very expensive. You put up machines, you don't have to worry about the machines so much. They're expensive machines, so you worry a bit, but you don't have to worry about losing a life.
Yeah.
And that's why things changed dramatically.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps it up. Do you have any final thoughts on that time
Well, the
back
next
then?
step is going out to Mars.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can do whole other shows on that one day. But as far as the space race is concerned, or John Glenn, no more rocks left unturned?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
They played golf on Mars to show you that you can really hit that golf ball.
On the moon, you mean?
Yeah, on the moon,
on
yeah.
the moon. Yeah, maybe we'll play golf on Mars one day.
Yeah.
You see, he's already got Mars on the mind.
Yep.
Okay, Rich.
Sorry
well,
about that.
Well, thanks for coming.
Okay.
We'll call you back later when we do something else, mark another occasion, or maybe catch up on the Mars missions or the Mars rover. Lots of exciting stuff always happening in outer
Okay.
space. Before I go, I'm just going to read a few announcements.